Hi, everybody. I didn't know I was going to do something like this until 10 minutes ago. But I'm reading the social media and I'm reading some angry Browns fans. But the ones I relate to most are the ones that are dejected right now that the Browns aren't going to be in the playoffs. And I want to be able to explain to you the business of football. Um, you know, First of all, if you're a Browns fan that remembers last year and it's like we had such high hopes going into this year that there was going to be something more substantial than last year. We got a lot of breaks last year. We really did. We won a lot of close games that could have gone the other way. And this year was just not our year. I mean, from the very beginning, whether it was ill-timed injuries, individual positions like the offensive line getting hit all at once with injuries, and then COVID and all the other things that happened to Baker Mayfield and the total summation of his injury list, and right down to losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers in Cleveland. This is not an unforeseen result. And I'm not crying in my beer over this season because none of the teams in the AFC North, and I want to say congratulations to the Cincinnati Bengals. I think that's great. It's nice to have, like we were last year, somebody new representing our division. And and I'm sure that Ravens fans feel the same way. It was just not meant to be for their team because their quarterback got hurt and the injuries piled up, and it never let up. From the starting, losing their running backs in the beginning of the year to their safeties or cornerbacks, it never let up. It's been a difficult year. And a tough transition year into a 17-game schedule when there was really no preseason. And I think it was one of the reasons that, all these injuries have happened. I don't think people are ready to play this kind of a schedule. Thank you, Dogtown. And, I know how fans feel because I got a heart beating in my chest, and I think we all live and die with our sports teams, and sometimes things go right, and sometimes they just don't. And, and Sting, you're very welcome, and thank you for jumping on, because this is not pre-publicized. Whoever's here is here just because maybe you need to sit down and have somebody to chat with. It's kind of like the online equivalent to hand holding during a difficult time. What I want to explain to you is that, A, we didn't play well enough this year to deserve to go to the playoffs. And this is not going to bash the Cleveland Browns, and I'm not going to point individual fingers, but the results weren't good enough. And like I said, losing to the Steelers in Cleveland was really where things took the nosedive. And you can't keep playing in close games over and over and over again and get away with it. And that's what the Ravens found out in the end, too. You just can't continue to play every week in, week out, and expect to pull a rabbit out of the hat. Doesn't work that way. But I will say this. The NFL knows its business. Even though their business is not to my liking, they understand what has made the NFL the most popular of all sports in the United States, and why they can dramatically raise the price of the Sunday ticket, and fans will continue to pay the price to watch the games on television, and why the ticket prices keep going up, why the valuations of the franchises keep going up. And what they understand is there's a story to be told. And beneath it all, there's the shady part, which is the gambling part. But I don't know enough about that to really be able, with any sincerity, to tell you that I can tell you, that I could explain any of that because I just don't get involved in that. But I do understand marketing inside out. And the opportunity to have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase in the playoffs is a damn sight more attractive than to have a crippled Baker Mayfield, no wide receivers, but a good running team in Cleveland, or we're not sure if Lamar Jackson's injury is in fact season ending, which it might be now, but to watch a limping, immobile Lamar Jackson, that takes a lot of the marketing presence away from the Ravens, just as the lack of speed and wideouts. And, all you need to see is Odell Beckham catch a couple touchdown passes and, you're going to be whipped like a government mule over stuff like that. So the league didn't want to see Cleveland in there. And really, when push comes to shove, not the backup quarterback for the Ravens either, when they have this bright, shiny thing, which is All-American boy Joe Burrow, clean, composed, good quarterback, good size, no obvious deficiencies, and he's got a young rookie, already a star receiver. Jamar Chase is to the Cincinnati Bengals what Evan Mobley is to the Cleveland Cavaliers. You wonder why the Cavaliers are suddenly winning and suddenly getting better calls on the floor. Well, until COVID struck the Cavaliers and then Ricky Rubio went down. Last year, the Cleveland Browns were a fresh story, and there was none of this Baker Mayfield hate. And a lot of the Baker Mayfield hate is coming from the marketing department of the NFL and then letting the bad fans do the rest. For Cincinnati, one thing I'll say about Joe Burrow is that he's an honest guy. If you didn't see his post-game interview on television, somebody's got it up online. He, on 3 occasions, mentioned the good calls that went in their favor during the course of the game. And to be honest with you, I mean, we wouldn't get such calls against the Kansas City Chiefs. We wouldn't get calls against anybody in the state that we were in this year. And a lot of teams wouldn't either. And, Zach Jackson did everything that he could think of to lose, or Zach Taylor, I'm sorry, everything he could do to lose that football game. God only knows the decision-making was just unbelievably poor. And it's one of the reasons why I say this is like 52 pickup, flip a coin, who's going to win the division? And does it really matter? They're not going to go very far, and we wouldn't have gone very far. The Ravens wouldn't go very far. And the Steelers really can only go as far as Ben Roethlisberger can grab them by the ankles and drag them into a men's room. Consequently, the most enticing thing in the AFC North is this duo. And boy, they know one another inside out. And nobody can complain about the fact that Jamar Chase came through with a magnificent performance, as did Joe Burrow, in the clutch. But what I'm smart enough to know is 4th down, and whatever hold they say they saw in the end zone would never have been called for a lot of other teams. They wanted the Bengals to win, and that is marketing. And the fact that their head coach kept going for it and crushed his own quarterback. I mean, a guy with a knee problem, for God's sakes, and they let him take that hit. And now, he said after the game, well, I'm feeling fine. But no, he was limping, and he's got, that's not what you need. All right. And they didn't want to even give the ball back to Patrick Mahomes because their coach is afraid, and he's still afraid. Bad decision making. And right now the Bengals, if you've watched them this season, they've been the beneficiary of some good stuff. And I think the players are aware of that too. It's just a new story in the North, and they'll get their time on national television and get their asses plastered only because they're not good enough to compete with the big boys. And they got a head coach who I still think is a moron. And nothing changed my mind about him in the closing minutes of that football game. It was peculiar, to say the least. And I think this is the next part of the issue. Will Baker get the surgery now and get healthy, or is he going to play tomorrow? And what I'm going to say is it all depends on whether there is even the slightest mathematical chance that the Browns could make the playoffs. And I think the door is completely locked. Please correct me if I'm incorrect about this. But if there is even a sliver of a chance, Stefanski will play him. I'll guarantee you that. And, but in the end, it doesn't matter. I wouldn't. I don't know what it all means. Chargers winning. We figured the Chargers would win, and I think the Browns season is over. If it would, and Denver, of course, has no offense. Joe, you're the only fan that I don't feel bad for. It's interesting because you could come on here gracefully and say, Mr. Moohead, I'm here to kiss your hoof because you were the only journalist who spoke the truth about Lamar Jackson. And I told you he wouldn't be there when you needed him. I told you that. And now the question is, can he or is he willing to play hurt? Nobody will know the answer to that question because he didn't play. If it were Baker Mayfield, when he hurt his heel bone, he played. And that was also with the other injuries. So, what I'll tell you is this, Joe. It's a rough game. It's a tough game. And, coulda, woulda, shoulda. Who would have been the best team had everyone stayed healthy? It's and thank you. I am the bovine godfather, and this means kiss the hoof. So thank you, Joe. And you know that I love you. You're a good fan, and it's disappointing for all of us when our team gets eliminated. But there are a lot of teams who were already eliminated, and we were one of those teams for such a long time. I think people have really kind of lost sight of the fact that we were a non-factor for so long that being a factor, an actual factor in the league, is very new to fans, and they want it all now. And it just doesn't work out that way. It takes luck. Yes. It takes a quarterback who the league latches onto and loves, and no, that will never be Baker Mayfield. And I don't know why that is. That's the greatest problem that Baker Mayfield has, in my estimation, is that the league either doesn't like him or they don't like him in Cleveland. I haven't come to a conclusion yet about that, but there's just too much bad press about this guy, and I don't know why. But what they do like is a fresh face, and it's a good story. Kid comes back from ACL surgery in the season after, and he puts up the numbers that he's put up, and that they're number one pick, and they were belittled for taking a wide receiver when their offensive line was still weak. And by golly, that guy has turned out to be an absolute holy terror. He's got size, strength, and speed. And again, is it possible that Baker Mayfield is not that good? And I don't know what you mean by that good. I don't think Herbert is that good. I think he was against us, but he lost to the Texans. So it's consistency that we're talking about. What I will tell you is that Baker is not consistent. And this year it'd be very hard for anyone with the litany of injuries that he has had to be consistent. But you already know what my concerns are about Baker, and that's his footwork and his mechanics. and it's going to require somebody who really stays on top of him and that has to keep reminding him. And if he can't get it right, then no, he's not that good. No quarterback with footwork problems can be that good. Okay. I hope that answers your question, but I want to see a healthier version of him next year. And if, and that's his last time to prove himself. And I'd like to see the front office get its act together and get some wide receivers on the field for him. That's about it. I don't have any great revelations about Baker Mayfield. I know that he's a lightning rod, but not for me. The lightning rod are the games you lost this year and the reasons you lost them. And the loss to Kansas City was on John Johnson III, who's not even going to play tomorrow. Even if he was healthy, he wouldn't play because he's just another fucking social media troublemaker. And the coach is pissed at him and he ain't coming back. I can guarantee you he will not be on the roster this coming year. Won't be. Because, you don't put that shit out on in the public and create dissension amongst people in your locker room. You don't do that. And there are concerns when people appear to have judgmental deficiencies, and especially guys who are veteran players. You saw Antonio Bryant today, and that's nothing to laugh at. That's nothing to think is funny, and I saw people commenting on it. This is a clear sign of CTE, early onset. There is something wrong with him. He's not an old guy, and he's got a problem. And that emotional problem probably emanates from concussions and brain trauma. It's not funny. And, when his fellow receiver, Evans, came over to try to stop him from doing it, there was no stopping him from doing it. And I'll tell you something else. They're going to write up OBJ as a hero as far as the Rams are concerned. But on the pick where they threw to him in triple coverage that was intercepted, he punched a guy. He just wildly threw a roundhouse punch. Now, why they didn't, that would have been immediately flagged in Cleveland. Are you kidding me? Now that he's a Ram, but you see, the signs are all there. He's going to fuck him at the drive-thru. When all's said and done, OBJ is a cancer. I'm thrilled he's off of this team. What I want is what Cincinnati's got. I want a wide receiver who's got a future, what we thought we had with Josh Gordon. I want to see a big guy with speed who can spread the field and go up after the ball and get the ball around one or two guys. We don't have anybody like that. What triggered the punch, Nick? The fact that the guy had intercepted the ball and it wasn't clear whether he was contacted when he was on the ground, and he started to get up. And he'll say he was trying to punch the ball out of his hands, but he roundhoused him right toward his groin. So help me God. And then it's right there. You can take a look at it. It's right there for the world to see. What triggered it is that he was triple covered, and he's out for himself. He doesn't care about the team. He only cares about himself. Anyone who saw that knows exactly. And both of them are in a bad position, Joe, because that fifth-year option is going to be everything for them. And if Jackson gets hurt again next year, then teams are going to back off, and he's never going to get the big money, right? And he passed up the big money this year. He's not going to get that kind of, $200 million or whatever, $250 million payday when nobody's sure exactly how he can handle the offensive scheme that Harbaugh has drawn up for him. There are physical limitations to all players, even guys who are alleged supermen. What's funny about this is kid in a candy shop, Tori. You want Wilson Garrett, but Ohio State played without Wilson Garrett. Ohio State played without their top receivers, Olave, and it didn't matter. So Marvin Harrison Jr. ran around him, and the other guy, I can't even pronounce his name, ran right over him. And yes, it was Utah, but the fact of the matter is Ohio State shouldn't be strutting around with its chest out they gave up all those points, 42 points, man, to Utah. That's not a good thing. There's a lot of wide receiver talent to be had, and you just got to pick the guy who has good hands and size and speed. That's the drill. Now, whether, it's a hard thing to know whether he's league ready to come in and make a big impact by his pattern running, because nobody runs patterns in college. You saw that. I mean, the game was a video game. I was the Ohio State game was like watching a Tecmo Bowl video game. That was embarrassing to me. It was just really embarrassing. Bing, 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 bing. Touchdown. Just foolishness. There was no defense on the field, and nobody's running a pattern. They just slant down the field and outrun the secondary, because you know that the secondary guys from Utah didn't exactly win the Olympics. They're so slow that one guy's passing a baton onto the safety while they're trying to catch the wide receiver. There's way more talent and speed wide receiver wise than there is in the secondary, because very few secondary men will ascend to the heights of the wide receiver pay scale wise to the Jerry Rices of the world, or the OBJs or the people like that who, are considered like demigods when they're, and now Jamar Chase, what a big financial future he has. Defensive secondary guys, there's going to be a couple good ones that come out every year in the draft, but wide receivers, there's going to be more of it. But don't judge based on, I want this Ohio State guy or that Ohio State guy, because they're playing a bunch of farm tractors in the Big Ten. I mean, let's be honest. You really thought Michigan was any good? Give me a fucking break. Michigan pushed Ohio State around, and so did Utah early on. Ohio State's not a tough defensive team. This should come as no surprise. But again, Michigan doesn't have any wide receivers to speak of. There are going to be a select number of guys. You got to find the guy with height, hands, and speed. And if it turns out he's a lousy route runner, then you lose. But you got to go with the gifts, because that's what you need. That's what the Cleveland Browns offense needs. And whoever quarterbacks the team, that's what he's going to need. So it's that's his name. Yeah. I mean, it was so ridiculous. Then the kickoff went back for a touchdown. It wasn't even exciting. It was just laughable. I was laughing going, is this how they play the game in Utah? Is this like a Mormon version of college football? It's very, very strange for me. I think this is largely true. I think the Browns have made us drink for decades, but, now it's a thirst that's born of, we're just that close. And the thing that really makes it so difficult is that the teams who are in our division are not better than we are. They may be a little more well-rounded. And, again, somebody says that I tell this like it is and I'm truthful. I mean, if none of the injuries happen, all right, the Ravens would win. All right, they would have won the division. But that's not the way the season played out. And you can never predict the way the season is going to play out. That's the deal. So what do you want me to tell you? The Steelers are the team that's heading in the worst direction. The Browns are just kind of, and I'll explain it the simplest way so that you won't feel bad. The Browns had a lousy defense last year. And the defense was the only thing worth watching at the end of the year. So we did our job draft-wise in bringing in some defensive guys. But we didn't do anything on the offensive receiving side of the ball because there just aren't enough picks. I have said this before in the past. The previous regimes of the Cleveland Browns have just pushed back the progress of that team for years and years and years. And when you go ahead and hire Hugh Jackson, or you go ahead and you bring in Freddie Kitchens, that pushes you back so many years. And you got holes on your team. So you can see the Browns couldn't even field a kicker, for God's sakes. We got 3 kickers in our division, and they're excellent kickers. And then you got the Browns, who it looks like Lucy and Charlie Brown, for God's sakes. So we have holes on this team, and the holes are big. Wide receiver, big hole. And you're going to have a big hole again at safety. John Johnson's got to be gone, and Ronnie Harrison's got to be gone. Well, Ronnie Harrison can't walk past a dandelion without coming up injured. And John Johnson, he wants to be somewhere else. You can tell he just wants to be somewhere else. You're not going to have Jarvis Landry back. It's a $1.5 million hot loss, as far as, moving on from him. And he's going to be 30 years old and his body's broken up. He's a real good soldier, a tough guy, and will do well for a team. But the team that he goes to, he's going to have to be used as a slot guy who doesn't have to play every down so his body can hold up for them. This is why when you have a bounty of position players, you can pick and choose the kind of guys you want to get in free agency. Well, the Browns don't have the choice of picking and choosing. They have to get frontline receivers. We can't be worried about who's going to play in the slot. We don't have to worry about that shit. So we got to go out and get people who are absolute starters in the league and full-time players, guys that you want on the field. And you've got to change your offensive scheme to the degree to integrate more of the 3-wide philosophy into the offensive scheme. And Delpit's turned out to be, a nice player. But again, these are young guys. The defensive team that we saw early in the year, and I'm not a big Joe Woods fan still. I'm not buying into it. But the players got better as the year progressed. And that's what you look for in young defensive players. There are problems, however. I don't think Greedy Williams is ever going to really play in the NFL. I think he should consider retiring. I don't like the way his arm is hanging at his side. It doesn't look right to me. And I don't think it's worth a young man's developmental future for that. And you can't tank enough to improve your draft position that much, Heston. I wish it were that easy, but it isn't that easy. And I would personally, if there is a zero mathematical chance of us making the playoffs, I would have Baker go in and get his surgery, because it's a 6-month recovery on this. And if you want him back for training and to get, some chemistry with new wide receivers, you're going to have to do that. And that's going to be the hardest thing for Baker Mayfield, I believe. It's going to be in his current condition and getting the surgery and then having to come back quickly from that is, again, he's going to be staring down 3 new receivers. There's a real chance he's not going to make the cut in Cleveland. But that doesn't mean it's the end of the line for Baker Mayfield. He's not Colt McCoy, for God's sakes, who's still playing. But I mean, you understand what I'm saying. He's not a career in the bucket kind of guy. And if he goes to the right place, I think that he can be a guy who can get you into the playoffs. Well, how far he can get you, unless his footwork improves, it ain't going to be very far. All right. So, but right now I'm looking at next year and I'm saying it's going to be difficult to communicate with a bunch of young wide receivers. And that's what we're going to have. And it ain't going to work to keep playing Harrison Bryant and Hooper. Hooper's been a bust. He's been a bad fit. And there's too many bad fits in this offensive scheme. And it tells me that there's something wrong with that too. So depending on the 3 tight ends, that can't continue. We have to start modernizing. And I love the running game. I love the guys we got. And we'll see. we'll see how that happens. And Joe's asked me a question. Could Canelo Alvarez beat Hearns or Hagler? He could not beat Marvin Hagler. Thomas Hearns, anybody technically could have beaten Tommy. You hit him in the point in the chin, he gets spaghetti legs. Tommy Hearns was a pelican, right? Very, very, very skinny legs and a big upper body. He kept gaining weight as his career went up, and he kept going up weight classes, but his legs remained the same skinny legs. If you want to have some fun, Joe, take a look at how Iran Barkley knocked out Tommy Hearns. And I know that Canelo Alvarez is a better fighter than Iran Barkley. So, yeah, but not Hagler. There's no way he would be too lightweight. He wouldn't be able to infight with Hagler. And Hagler's southpaw thing would just fuck him up. Really bad fuck him up. Because we've seen Alvarez get beat too. And fighters aren't as good today as far as plentifully as there were back in the heyday when you had, a lot of really great middleweights fighting all at once. It's not like that today. I always take a look at who, when they accumulate these belts, who they actually beat to get the belt. And in a lot of cases, it's like, who's that? They're guys who are, European guys who never amounted to anything. So, and let's see what has to say. The middle of the pack team mostly need offensive line and defense. Yeah, and that's exactly right. The good news, Heston, in all of this is a lot of our work has been done in the trenches. And we even proved this year that with our offensive line coach, Callahan, that he can coach up the backups to do a really credible job with the running game. Against the Packers, we had two non-starters in and people who knows who they were when the season began, and we ran the ball down their throat. So that's all good news. That's all good news. Because finding offensive linemen, that's tough, right? And the real question is going to be, when they do their assessment of Jedrick Wills, are they going to move Jedrick Wills to the right side and they're going to move Bitonio to the left? There's a lot of issues that need to be resolved on the offensive line, but the players are solid. It's just the strategy needs to be figured out. And if you're looking for defense, everyone's always looking for defensive players, but we had a good haul of defensive young talent, and I think that will serve the team well. And every year is different, every year is different. Who knows who's healthy next year and who's not. I addressed this earlier. Christopher, thanks for jumping in. The pass interference calls against Kansas City today went completely against what the league's been doing all year. The league has been a lot more liberal in allowing contact, and then all of a sudden the hankies were coming out. But I think it's all part of the marketing of the NFL. I think they see an opportunity and they jump at that opportunity. And you know what it's kind of like? It's kind of like the NBA right now going, shit, Zion Williamson didn't pan out. Guy's hurt all the time. Shit, the Pelicans are never going to be a contender even with him. So, man, we got to draw this whole thing up again. Fuck, not LeBron again. No. I mean, it's like Anthony Davis is injured. Good. Let LeBron get his 43 points when he's 37 years old and keep losing. They're 17 and 19. Marketing becomes really important. And I think the interference calls are predicated on the marketing thing. And I don't think it's anything more or less than that. Tom, I think all of us knew that Cincinnati was going to be an improved team, but I still don't think they're that good a team. And I think their coach is really in the weeds. I don't understand where he's coming from at all. and he coaches from a fearful perspective, and I don't like that. And crazy shit. It's like, I don't even want him to get the ball back in his hands. I don't want Mahomes to touch the ball. If they have one play, they're going to beat us. And he damn near fucked the whole game up with that nonsense. Crazy stuff. Hi, Brett. How you doing? A non-Browns question. They're talking about AB walking off the field. Everyone's acting like they don't know why. Yeah, I mean, again, it's hurtful to me. For years and years and years, I've been trying to raise awareness of CTE and that the league diminishes the significance of this. The NFL reminds me of the big cigarette companies, denying the cancer link to cigarettes. It's unfortunate. And watching somebody come unglued like that, what winds up happening is what happens in other cases where the junior Seau's, they fucking kill somebody. They're not with it. These are not the same people that came into the league. Their brains are addled. They have brain damage. And the average fan doesn't care. The average fan doesn't care that there's an Omicron surge across the country, and piling 70,000 people in a stadium is a dumb, fucking, stupid thing to do. And you're going to find out in the next month that I'm right about that, too. And I'm not in agreement with the CDC. I don't give a shit what Fauci says. I just know what common sense is. There are some things you do that are smart, and some things that you do knowingly that they're bad. And the NFL does evil things. And that got shown in front of the world. Everybody saw him trying to get that jersey off, and it was like an act of a crazy, desperate man. And this is a guy who was given a chance by the Bucs to come in there and play. He's a sick fella, and we got to look at it that way. And he's sick because of the game that he played these years, and there's going to be plenty more like him. It's really a tough thing. And it is obvious. And, you're not going to see that highlight all over ESPN because that's a bad look. And the NFL doesn't want that look, You knew I couldn't resist. Am I like a ham? Is that what this is? It's the bitter truth of saying, no video today. Huh? I thought about it and I said, there's a greater good. There's a greater good, and it has nothing to do with promoting this program. It has to do, there's a lot of legitimate Browns fans. What spurred me to do the show was there was a guy who admitted that he went over the edge on Twitter. And I kind of chastised him by sarcastically saying that he had a great attitude and was a great fan. And he was bad-mouthing the Browns for not making the playoffs. And I thought, there's a lot of fans who maybe are not acting out like that, but are just feeling bad, So here I am, Tomorrow I'll do my regular Moohead show at 6 o'clock, and then I'll do a halftime show, but I'm not doing a post-game show on a Monday night game. Now the Monday night game, now they're wishing they hadn't moved it to Monday night because it's of no significance whatsoever. You know how it goes. But the one thing that's different about my program is that this is truly a fan-driven thing. It's a boutique show. It is not designed for monetization. It is not here for advertisers to jump in. And it's kind of a secret society. But I like the show to be there when the fans need the show to be there. And when you're surrounded by 24/7 hateful ESPN bad-mouthing and all of the Colin Cowherd shit and all of the stuff that penetrates the fiber of the sports fan, I just look at things differently, and I say, hey, if my team isn't good enough, I'm going to be on the front line saying we weren't good enough. If my team gets robbed, I'm going to say we got robbed. if Baker Mayfield is a rotten or a good human being, I wouldn't know because I don't know him. Is he popular with his teammates? Is he not popular with his teammates? Is there a schism there between the two or a chasm? I don't know. I'm not there. I'm not in the locker room. But I know that he doesn't deserve the shit he's getting, death threats, and he doesn't deserve the kind of treatment that he's getting from his own hometown press. There's got to be a balance. There's got to be a balance. And I hope this program is a balance. Sometimes I will be very negative about the Cleveland Browns when I'm pissed off at the way, especially lack of effort or a lack of thought that goes into play calling. That kind of stuff really, it's like, you got to be sharper than that. That's why if I were a Cincinnati fan, I wouldn't be feeling so good about Zach Taylor. I really wouldn't. Because it's going to come back and bite you in the ass. You know damn well it will. And I'm telling you that OBJ will bite the Rams in the ass, just as sure as I'm sitting here. It's a J.R. Smith syndrome. It's me. I got to be the focus of attention. And that's why I'm pimping the Cavs so hard this year, because it's all for one. And there, we don't have no individual superstar who dribbles the ball 18 seconds off the clock so he can make his move with 6 seconds left and chuck up a 24-footer off balance. We don't have that. And I like that. I like teamwork. I like camaraderie. And I like to be honest about the team, and I don't like to be cruel about people who play a cruel game. The reason you can't finish a game is you can't get separation downfield. If you don't have quick strike capability, if you're dependent, as the Ravens came in knowing they were working with a second string quarterback, and it was all about possessions. And, if we can have long possessions of the ball, whether we kick threes, which they did on a couple occasions, that's good enough. All right. It's not good enough. You have to be able to break things down the field. And that's what Cincinnati has. You see, when you have a guy, and even T. Higgins could do the same thing. When you have one guy like Jamar Chase, who can just get it done flat out, the second guy, T. Higgins, who's no slouch, even though he doesn't have the hands and the tool set, now he's going up against a secondary cornerback. Boy, he can bust your ass big time. And then you got Boyd. So they have 3 guys who can hurt you downfield. We don't have a single guy. So you're not going to finish any game if you can't have that quick strike. It's never cut the jugular. It's impossible to do that. And this is true also. And that's a terrible thing. You got to be able to get down the field and make the play. And you're right with me, Bitter Truth. Yeah. Cincinnati has multiple guys who can hurt you. And that's part of the deal, So, and hey, Tony, Colin Sexton is the guy who would pound the ball. Yeah. If Colin Sexton wants to come back as a 6th man next year to the Cleveland Cavaliers and come off the bench and be instant offense, I don't have a problem with that. But he ain't going to crack the starting lineup because he's selfish, man. He wants to score the basketball, Jamal Crawford kind of guy. They don't win championships. That's not the kind of guy that gets it done. He'll get paid to go somewhere. He'll end up in like Sacramento or New Orleans. And he'll average his 20 points, 22, 24 points a game and accomplish absolutely nothing. If you're going to win in Cleveland, Ohio, you ain't going to get the next LeBron James. You couldn't keep the last LeBron James. And you've struck it big with Evan Mobley. And Jared Allen was a steal from the Nets because they just wanted to put together their list of, geriatric all-stars who have been hurt and sick or out of their mind. I don't know how Kyrie got CTE either. He's mentally really addled. There's something wrong with Kyrie Irving. But with the Cavaliers, we're even making a guy like Lauri Markkanen, who is really a soft player. He's a softy 7-footer who can shoot some from the perimeter. But you give him open shots. You see, you have a guy like Darius Garland in the backcourt and cutting down the lane with the ball, keeping his dribble alive, and firing to people behind the arc. I mean, like Kevin Love is rejuvenated because he's got open looks. Markkanen's got open looks. Even Okoro is burying some threes because they're daring him to, and he's got open looks. When you dribble off, 15 seconds of a 24-second clock, you're never going to get into a play deeply enough to have somebody open on the wings. All of your shots are going to be challenged. And if you go to the hoop, they're not going to call offensive fouls or defensive fouls against your guys. That's life in Cleveland. It's different this year. If you're not watching them, you should be. All right. I've done way more than I thought I was going to do. I will be back, I promise you, at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow to do a regular Moohead show, and I'll be back again at the half of the Browns game. And I'll be watching, and I hope you support your team. Whether Baker Mayfield plays or not, whoever's on the field, respect, because any one of these guys could end up like Antonio Bryant. You don't want to see that. These guys are giving up a lot to make the money that they're making, and they want to play with teams where things are better for them, and you can't blame them for that. And it's a brutal, brutal game. So at least show your appreciation by not jumping off a bandwagon and support your team. I'll be around tomorrow at the half. Thanks a lot for looking in, and I'll see you tomorrow. Until then, hasta la vista, Pasture Heads. Good night.